In Dubai, you don't need cash or card. You pay with your face. Let's grab a drink. Let's pay. That was quick. In Dubai, even your face is worth money.
The bottom, watch the cans. All the stuff on the bottom is our apocalypse. This is what we're gonna eat when Trump say we can't go to the grocery store no more, or we gotta take the mark of the beast. Not necessarily Trump, but whomever. Take the mark of the beast. That's what we're gonna eat down there. And what is this over here that you just made? Oh, this is barbecue sauce. Homemade barbecue sauce straight from tomatoes. So that's all our barbecue sauce.
Jeremiah chapter 30 and verse 5. For thus saith Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, we have heard a voice of trembling, of fear and not of peace. Ask ye now and see whether a man doth travail with child. Wherefore do I see every man with his hands on his loins, as a woman in travail, and all faces are turned into paleness? Alas, for that day is great, so that none is like it. It is even the time of Jacob's trouble, but he shall be saved out of it. First and foremost, I want to give all praise, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rachak Badash. Double honors to the elder apostles and the elder bishops of Great Millstone, who rule very well, very beautifully. Double salutations to the Akim I heard pushing this gospel in truth and in sincerity to the best of their ability, given to them by Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai. Peace, blessings, and salutations be unto the elect scattered abroad. May the election of Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Lord willing, upon at your houses. This is Brother Quanah Watts from the Arizona Great Millstone Camp. Come back at you, Lord will, with the edifying lesson through the spirit and power of Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai. Lord will, it is edifying. Lord will, it is straight to the point. And as you had seen in that video, man, the first video, right, you had basically over there in Dubai, you know, saying that now you can pay, you know, with your face, you know, which is a step in the right direction, meaning that it's just one step closer to the mandatory implementation of the RFID micro C-hip, man, you know, which is the next major prophecy to unfold, right? As we read in Revelations, the 13th chapter, right, verses 16 on down, you know, it tells you that Esau, Edom, right, the self-proclaimed so-called white man, matter of fact, we'll go ahead and just grab it, is ultimately going to, you know, introduce, right, and eventually make mandatory, right, the mark of the beast, which is the RFID micro C-hip. Habakkuk, the 2nd chapter, right, it says, at the end it shall speak and not lie. And we see in it speak loud and clear, right, with all the different digital technology being set up, you know, all the things that you used to be able to get, you know, a hard copy of, right, birth certificate, social security card, health records, ID, so on and so forth. Now those things are starting to become digital, you know, again, further giving us, you know, the understanding, right, that the mark of the beast is the actual RFID micro C-hip, which is, you know, the brain C-hip, right, the Neuralink, as well as the little rice grain, right, that they're ultimately, you know, putting in people's hands, right, which they've been doing, right, for years. They've been doing this, right, 2013, 2014, right, over in Sweden. It started overseas, but now it's worked its way here. And, you know, again, they're promoting it, right, heavy, right, as the scriptures say they would, you know. But we understand that not everybody is going to take that C-hip, right? You saw the lady, you know, the Jake women, basically in their, you know, pantry, if you will, talking about, right, the different foods that they got stored up and whatnot, right, just in case, you know, of that implementation of, you know, the mark of the beast, you know, getting things stored up. But see, they don't understand, you know, really that food that they have stored up is not going to save them, man. You know, And as the, the elder priest Amawan Gabar was going into, right, his little in transit, right, he was making mention, right, that it's going to be gradualism, right, working its way up into that point, right, of all chaos and whatnot, man. So really, that, those people that are stacking up now and getting ready now, it's foolishness, man. At the end of the day, it's foolishness. You shouldn't be stacking up, physical things. You should be stacking up spiritual things, right? This wisdom, knowledge, and understanding, right? Getting it before it's too late. As the scriptures say, seek ye the Lord while he may be found, right? Because again, we're coming into a time where you're going to need that wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. Isaiah 33:6 says, wisdom and knowledge shall be the stability of thy times and the strength of salvation. You're going to need this wisdom, knowledge, and understanding because, again, as I'm about to read, where we're coming into a time where he's going to force that RFID micro C hit, man. Revelations 13 and verse 16, it says, and he causeth all. And when you go into that word causeth, right, it goes back into the definition to make, right, or to require, right? He's going to put you people in a very sticky situation, right, which he's already doing, right? You're having jobs being lost at all-time highs. You got you got these tariffs, right? That trade war that's happening between America and China mainly, but really a lot of different countries. America has put tariffs on, man. So that's going to affect America all the way around, right? And Trump is talking about, bringing American businesses, right, back to American soil. Hey, well, shit, that shit takes years, decades, man. You got to phase out, right? You got to set the plan. Okay, how, because again, right, the cost and weight and of having that business here, it's gonna go way up. Because the average American is not just going to settle for pennies on the dollar like you can do in these other nations, man. You're going to have to pay people, $15, $20, $80, $25 an hour to make shoes, right? To do the different type of metal working and whatnot that it takes to make these different barrels, and woks for cooking and all these different things, right? A lot of these things are done by hand, which, again, right, we're 2025, they're ultimately making everything more digital, right? So a lot of especially AI coming out, right? It's going to take a lot of those jobs, So a lot more people are going to be, out on their ass, not having anything to do, And see, Esau are going to get rid of a lot of people, man. And he's going to do it by way of, this micro C hit, man. And coming in like a flood and ultimately forcing, right, this NWO amongst the world, amongst the people. It says, and he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads. This is everyone, right, across the world, across the globe. It doesn't matter who you are, right? This is a part of his agenda, the NWO, right? To again, connect everyone to the IoT, the Internet of Things, man, which I believe Elder Apostle Tahar, ultimately coined that term, if I'm not mistaken, some years back. But this is Esau's agenda, right? And it's all, to appease his, his godlike complex that he has, man. Wanting to be in control of everything, wanting to see what people are doing, what people are thinking, right? Over in China, you got this headband, if you will, right? A headband that, when you're not focused, it'll turn red, right? And it'll show the teacher that you're not focused, right? That you're not focused on the task at hand or what you're supposed to be learning, right? And when you're engaged, right, you're fully focused, it turns green, right? So they can know, right? Esau wants to be able to know your thoughts. He wants to know if you're in tune with what he's saying, or if you're with his agenda or not with his agenda. Which he ultimately, again, he got that his data up, right? If if that's what you want to call it, right? He got his data, his trial run, you know, when it came to, you know, the Icky Vicky, right? The C-19, right? That was just a big ass fucking trial run, you know. The final thing, right? Jacob's trouble, the hour of temptation, right? The final thing is not going to be as lax, man. It's not going to be as, you know, okay, you know, we'll open everything back up and let you people go back to doing what you want. No, they gathered their data and they said, okay, cool, we're gonna release our grip. Hey, but when they go to do it again, hey, that's gonna be the final thing, and people are gonna be taken out, right, put to death, if you don't cooperate and take this charagma. You know, because without it, right, you're not going to be able to participate in society. You're not going to be deemed and acknowledged as a citizen. You know, you're going to be excommunicated, man, and you're not going to be able to buy and sell, right? Verse 17, it says, and that no man might buy or sell save he that had the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name, right? So unless you have that charagma within your body, right, you're not going to be able to purchase. You're not going to be able to sell. Right, you're not going to be able to have your own business. You're not going to be able to, as the elder priest Amon Gabar said in his video, right? You're not going to be able to pay your mortgage. You're not going to be able to pay for your lights, your sewer, your trash, this, that, and the third. All these different things that you have to pay for. You know, and you're going to lose all of that, all of what you store up, all of what you purchase and put to the side just in case of emergencies, right? All that shit's gonna be lost, man. You know, you're not gonna have any of that. You're not gonna be able to continue to go to work and get a paycheck, right? Because again, that old system, this old system that we're operating on now, right? Esau is gonna ultimately render it void, right? Vain. You know, Esau gonna try to come with some, black swan, event and say, hey, the old system shut down. It was flawed. There was too many hackings, so on and so forth. Whatever he comes with, right? Whatever rhetoric he comes with, right? He's gonna come with an excuse on why this old system cannot be used again. And is gonna offer you a new, if you will, a new system, which is gonna be this digital system, right? That if you want to be able to continue to, have or work or have money, right? Because Esau's going to come with a UBI, universal basic income, man, right? A UBI, and he's going to be like, hey, it's going to be bribery, right? It's going to be, hey, if you want to be able to, continue to have your home, you want to be able to continue to, receive your tax refunds or whatever it may be, and you're gonna have to take this charagma, man, in order to have that. And a lot of people are gonna take it, man. A lot of people are gonna take it, because Esau has ultimately gotten the people to, rely on convenience, right? Rather than having to go out and go and get something and deal with being patient, right? When it comes to receiving things, Esau has made society, right, at a click of a button, man. I can have my food ordered. I can have my groceries ordered. I can just do everything on my phone. I can do everything online. I don't have to actually go out and do things. It could just be, given to me. I just pay for it and it can be given to me. Right, that's the society that Esau has ultimately put these people in, So again, when it comes to losing things and whatnot, these people are going to trip. These people are going to take this charagma because it's going to be, again, Esau is going to be playing on their convenience, right? He's going to bribe them, right? Scriptures say bribery was in his hand. Let's grab this real quick. Come on now. There we go. Here we go again. Let's go. I know it's in. I know it's in Psalms right here. Psalms 26, And verse 10, it says, in whose hand is mischief, and their right hand is full of bribes. And that's how Esau's going to do it, right? He's going to bribe you people, man, right? By this UBI, or, you know what I mean? Just, you know, hey, you want to be able to continue to have, or, you know, you got to, these banks were taking, you know, money from people, man, 20, 30, 50, $60,000 at a time. You know what I mean? People, you know, banks stealing people's money and whatnot, you know? Hey, Esau going to use that, man. He's going to use that. Hey, the bank that took your money, I mean, we still got your money, but we were able to recover it and put it on this charagma. You know, we don't want to put it back on the old system because you won't be able to have it. If you want your money, then you got to take this. This is the new system. This is the new way, right? And then we'll also throw in a UBI, right? Because, you know, AI done took your job, this, that, and the third, and, you know, whatnot. You know? But again, if you don't take it, again, you're going to be excommunicated from society and possibly killed, right? Esau's going to, you know, basically starve you out, if you will, right? You're not going to be able to buy, you know, any food. You're not going to be able to sell anything, right? So that way you can buy food, you know? Verse 15, Revelation 13 and verse 15, it says, and he had power to give life unto the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause that as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. That image is ultimately going into this philosophy and lifestyle that they're ultimately pushing and have been pushing, right? You know, across the world, man. You know, and now we're seeing it being heavily pushed, you know, really this digital version, right, being pushed, right? And again, if you're not going to take it, you're not going to be able to buy and sell, meaning you're going to starve, right? You're going to be dehydrated, right? You're going to die of dehydration, right? You're going to starve because you ain't got no food. You ain't got no money, right? You can't go to work. You know, prices are way too high. You're not going to be able to go to work, pay for anything. You're going to be screwed all the way around, right? And a lot of people are going to feel that desperation. A lot of people are going to, you know, listen to that bribery, you know, and take it, you know. But hey, we're not going to take it, man. Those who truly believe in Yahweh Shem Shai are not going to take this charagma, no matter how the situation looks, man. You know, no matter how the situation looks, we're going to continue to trust in Yahweh Shem Shai all the way to the end, Lord will, man. You know, because we understand that as we read in the scriptures that there's a victory that's going to come to those who do that, man. You know, but anybody else that takes that charagma, matter of fact, let's grab this. You're going to be mocked and scoffed at and possibly killed anyways, man. 2 Esdras 16 and verse 68, right? It says, for behold, the burning wrath of a great multitude is kindled over you, right? Esau's ready to come in and you know, use his weapons, right? Which we know his blessing is the sword, right? When this whole situation pops off, where when Esau doesn't see that, you know, everybody is on board with his new system, right? His digital system. What is he going to do? He's going to force the masses to take it, man, right? And eliminate those who are not going to, you know. Esau's been waiting, right? It says, and they shall take away certain of you and feed you, being idle with the things offered unto idol, right? Some of us are going to be snatched up into these FEMA camps, you know, and this is why it says in Revelations 2 and 10, right? Fear none of those things which thou shalt suffer, right? Because at the end of the day, again, as long as we continue to trust and believe in Yahweh Shem Shai, at the latter end of that verse, it tells you, right, those that remain faithful are going to receive a crown of life, man, you know, which is something Esau could never give us. Ever, you know. This is why we're going to remain faithful, right? Verse 68 says, and they that consent unto them shall be had in derision. You're going to be mocked, right? And in reproach and trodden underfoot. So even if you do take this charagma, Esau can very well still kill you, man, because we understand that his, you know, whole agenda is he wants the world population at 500 million or less, right? Which is roughly 8 billion people on the planet, right? 8.1 billion people on the planet, you know, which we're talking about 7.4, 7.6, right? Somewhere in there, right? a billion people being eliminated off the planet. You know, hey, you just very well, even though you take the charagma, you're participating in his society, Esau could look at you, right, and say, nah, I don't want you. You're an undesirable, and still fucking kill you, man. You know? So really there's no fucking point for you to even take it anyways, man. You know, but that's not the worst of it. Right? That's not the worst of it. Right? You have to deal with Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai at that point, man. Because as we read this in Revelations 14 and verse 9, it says, and the third angel followed them, saying with a loud voice, if any man worship the beast and his image, and receive his mark in his forehead or in his hand, the same shall drink of the wine of the wrath of the Most High, which is poured out without mixture into the cup of his indignation. Right? Meaning you're going to get the straight fury of Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai, right? No chaser, man. Right? When you got some whiskey or something like that, man, you take it, it's a little harsh. You know what I mean? With no chaser, no nothing. Hey, that shit harsh. It burns. You know what I mean? Versus when you take it with a little bit of, juice or whatever you take it with, right? You drink it, it's not as harsh, right? It's a little bit smoother, man. You still get the effects at the end. You know, the Lord's saying he going to give it to you with no chaser, man. Right? It says that he shall be tormented with fire and brimstone in the presence of the holy angels and in the presence of the Lamb. Meaning you're going to be destroyed, man. That's what you have to worry about if you take this charagma, right? Not only do you have to worry about Esau possibly deeming you an undesirable, right, still mocking and laughing and scoffing at you, but you have to deal with Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai. You know? Because you can't repent from that, man. Nowhere in the scriptures does it say that you can repent, right, from taking the charagma. At that point, you're just fucking done. You know? You're done. Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai is not dealing with you if you end up taking it, man. You know, but see, the men of the Lord, right, even though the situation, right, Esau, hems us up, puts us in FEMA camps, or as the scriptures say, some of us are going to have to be pilgrims, right, as we're put in that position, right, the men of the Lord are going to continue to, meditate on the scriptures. Again, Isaiah, right, let's go back and grab it. Isaiah 33 and verse 6, it says, and wisdom and knowledge shall be thy stability of thy times, and the strength of salvation, the fear of the Lord is his treasure, right? So when shit hits the fan, you're going to be meditating on the scriptures, right? You're going to be meditating on the scriptures such as, right, in Sirach, the 2nd chapter, right, when all hell breaks loose, what does it say? Sirach 2 and verse 2, it says, set thy heart aright and constantly endure, right? Again, that means in any situation, man, any situation. Scriptures also say in Isaiah, right, that the Lord will keep him in perfect peace whose mind is stayed upon him. Right? The Lord will keep us, man. The Lord will protect us. He hath care for his elect. Right? So as long as we continue to trust and believe in Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai, right, he will allow us to endure, to push through. Right? It says what? And make not haste in the time of trouble. Right? So we're not going to be out here wigging out, man. Our job says, hey, we're holding back your paycheck. We ultimately, we adopted a new system, where we can't put it, direct deposit into your bank accounts. They put it on this, if you want your money, so on and so forth. And I'm just throwing out a scenario, right, which very well could happen, right? Your job offers you, the charagma, you know what I mean? They might offer it to you. You might keep denying it. It might to get to the point where it's like, hey, the whole company's switching over, right? So you got to either take it or you're going to find another job. You know what I mean? Because again, as the elder priest Amon Gabar said, a society is still going to be functioning. Society is still going to be moving. You know what I mean? When this charagma is offered, when this charagma, right, is made mandatory, society is going to continue to function. You know what I mean? And people are ultimately going to be in a position of desperation, right? Because they're not going to be able to pay their bills. They're not going to be able to, continue to work, right? They're not going to be able to buy and sell. You know what I mean? And that's going to force some people to ultimately get it as well. You know what I mean? Which is heavy. And we're in the time where that is building towards that. So as we see it approaching, right? As we see it, building, right? Our goal in this time is to trust and believe in Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai and to continue to, cultivate, you know, that mindset of relying solely on Yahweh Bashim El Shai within ourselves, because we're coming into a time where we're gonna have to solely, right, rely on the Lord. You know what I mean? Which we should be doing for the most part now. You know, already, right? Trusting and believing the Lord, right? He's gonna deliver us from certain situations that we go through on the daily. You know, but we're gonna need the Lord 144 times more, right? In those days, in those moments, man. You know? Yahweh Bashim El Shai is going to be our only refuge in those times, man. Right? When there's no food, when there's no water, when Esau comes in like a flood, right? The Lord is the one that's going to raise up that standard, you know? Let's grab this in Job 5 and verse, 19, right? Because this is what Yahweh Bashim El Shai speaking to us. This is what the Lord's going to do for us, right? Those that truly believe, man. Right, Lord, will we be of that number, right? Job 5 and 19, it says, he shall deliver thee in 6 troubles, right? Which the 6 troubles ultimately going into the troubles that lead up into that final trouble, which we know is, you know, World War III, those nuclear missiles being fired, right? Which is the 7th trouble, right? As it says right here, yea, in 7 there shall no evil touch thee, right? That 7th is the nuclear hellfire. The 6th, right, is going into basically Jacob's trouble and the troubles that come before that, right? It says, in famine he shall redeem thee from death, right? Because we understand that, when we're going into in the wilderness, right? Back in the time of ancient Egypt, when we're coming out of ancient Egypt, right? When we're in the wilderness, right? There was many times we didn't have no food, we didn't have no water, and Yahweh Bashim El Shai furnished a table in the wilderness, right? Cleaved the, had Moses cleave the rock, right? So that way we can have water, you know? The Lord made it to where quails, right, basically came in abundance, man, and we were eating, you know? We were eating we were too stuffed, man. Right? It tells you that Jake was too stuffed. We had too much, you know? And that's how it's going to be for those that, you know, trust and believe in Yahweh Bashim El Shai, right? Scriptures say that they should be merry and have abundance, man. In the times to come, right, we're going to have good food, man. You know, we're not going to have it. And it's beautiful that the priest Amon Gabar, the other priest Amon Gabar, he made a statement. It's like, we're not going to be walking up. The Lord's not going to guide us to a fucking McDonald's or a Burger King or something like that. No, right? The Lord's going to, you know, provide us with good food, man. And I believe it as well. You know, Lord's not going to provide us no fucking GMO food, man. You know, Lord can have it to where, you know what I mean? You run into a forest, you know what I mean? And you just see a door in the middle of fucking nowhere with light around it. You go up to the door, you open it, and then what? You see an angel standing next to a table with some food. You know, you and your family, or you and whoever's with you, goes into that door. You eat your food. Another door pops up. You exit that door, and now you're in a whole nother place, safe from danger. So not only did the Lord feed you, but the Lord ultimately guided you away from the danger, man. You know? These are all, again, this is speculation, but these are all things the Lord very well could do. Right? Scriptures say the Lord is omnipotent, right? All powerful. So really all these things that, you know, we're talking about, right? The Lord can do these things. It's not far-fetched for the Lord, man. For our mere minds, our mortal minds, it might be. But for the Lord, it's possible. Right? Scriptures say that nothing is impossible for the Lord, man. You know? But I'll read it again, verse 20. It says, in famine he shall redeem thee from death, and in war from the power of the sword, man. Meaning the Lord's going to protect us, man. We know that sword, the modern day sword, is the gun, right? But hey, the sword is also likened unto what? These ICBM nuclear missiles, man. You know? So the Lord is going to deliver us from all these different situations, man. So we really, Lord, will we be part of the elect? There's really nothing for us to worry about, man. You know? It says, thou shalt be hid from the scourge of the tongue, neither shalt thou be afraid of destruction when it cometh. At destruction and famine thou shalt laugh. Right? Again, quoting it again, right? The Lord said what? We should be merry, right? Merry, being joyous, right? And having abundance, right? We ain't gonna be tripping, man. We're gonna look at that shit and say, hey, you ain't got no, look at the people that are dying in these famines and starving and whatnot, man. And the Lord is gonna have us mock them, man. Laugh and mock, because this word has gone to the four corners of the earth, man. Everybody knows about the Israelites, man. All nations know about the Israelites. You know, at this point, if you're not ultimately keeping the commandments to the best of your ability, and that's on you, man. And you're gonna have to pay for that because the warning is going out, right? For years, for decades, the warning is going out, man. Lord said that he gonna laugh and mock when your fear cometh, man, because you didn't want to listen, because you didn't want to take heed when he, when that phone was ringing, man. The Lord was calling. You didn't want to pick up the phone, so you're ultimately gonna perish. It says, at destruction and famine thou shalt laugh, neither shalt thou be afraid of the beasts of the earth, right? Because the scriptures talk about teeth of wild beasts, man. Jacob's trouble, we read it in the very beginning. Jacob's trouble is gonna be like a time like no other, man. It's gonna be like a time that has never ever been seen or recorded in history, right? All these different events that have happened, right? You got to take all these different events and smash them into one, and it's still gonna be worse than that. It says, for thou shalt be in league with the stones of the field, and the beasts of the field shall be at peace with thee. Meaning, hey, the Lord's gonna make us good, man. We gonna be straight, man. And I'm gonna close off with this too, man. Because again, as you've seen, that lady, man, she was preparing, right, all that food. And that very well could be for us, man. For the elect. Our Lord can have these preppers and whatnot storing up all this food, right, for when all hell breaks loose, man. You got people raiding in their homes, right? You read in 2nd Ezra, the 15th chapter, verse 15, 16 on down to verse 19, right? People are going to be breaking into people's homes for great tribulation, for lack of bread, right? Spoiling people's homes and goods and whatnot. And the Lord can have it to where they completely overpass one door or surpass or overlook one door, right? Which is where all the food was. So they go in that house, right? And they sit there and like, nah, there ain't no food in here. You know what I mean? But a couple hours later, right, a man of the Lord being a pilgrim run into this house, and end up finding all this food. They ended up, the Lord opens up, that door for them. They go down in that basement or wherever it is, pantry. And now there's all this food, man. Lord can do those things for the elect, man. Those are things that we have to, ultimately meditate on. But I want to grab this in Isaiah 33 and verse 15. It says, he that walketh righteously and speaketh uprightly, he that despiseth the gain of oppressions, that shaketh his hands from holding of bribes, that stoppeth his ears from hearing of blood, and shutteth his eyes from seeing evil. Basically being like Job, right? Eschewing evil, right? Following after righteousness, hating wickedness, hating evil, and trusting and believing in Yahweh Shem El Shah. This is what it says, verse 16. He shall dwell on high. His place of defense shall be the munitions of rocks. Bread shall be given him. His waters shall be sure. So the Lord is going to make sure that we good, right? Just like he did in the ancient, ancient wilderness. Hey, we're in the modern day wilderness today, and the Lord's going to do those same miracles for the elect that he did back then, right? Verse 17, it says, thine eyes shall see the king in his beauty. They shall behold the land that is very far off, man. Yahweh Shai coming and delivering us, man. Once everything's all said and done, man, Lord, will we remain faithful until the end? And Yahweh Shai gonna come and deliver us. And guess what? We're gonna be brought back into our own land, right? And we're gonna be having those new bodies, right? We're gonna be, rulers, kings, judges, priests in the earth under Yahweh Shai in our proper order, man, right? Which is what we desire, which is what we're waiting for, But these are the times that we are coming into, man, where all these different prophecies, the last few major prophecies are about to hit, right, in that proper order, right? Jacob's trouble being next, right, which is going to be what? The mandatory implementation, of the micro C-hip, right, and chaos ensuing because of that, right? And then what? World War III. And the most sought after prophecy, the deliverance of the elect. Again, Lord will we be of that number, man. But that's all I got. Lord will was edifying. Lord will straight to the point. I want to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rechak Wadash, the Lawrence, the elder apostles, the bishops of the great millstone. Till next time, I say shalom.